Commander stared at the red warning lights flashing across her ship's control panel. The main engine had died 3 hours ago, and now the backup systems were failing one by one. Her exploration ship, the UES Horizon, drifted helplessly in the dark space between stars. "How long do we have?" she asked her engineer, trying to keep her voice calm. 6 days, maybe 7 if we shut down everything except life support, Chief Petty Officer replied. His face was pale under the emergency lighting. "But Commander, we're weeks away from the nearest human outpost. No one can reach us in time." Looked around the bridge at her crew of 12. They were all young, most on their first deep space mission. They trusted her to bring them home. She had promised their families she would keep them safe. Now she was about to fail them all. "Send out a distress signal on all frequencies," she ordered. "Maybe someone is out there." The communications officer shook her head. "I've been trying for hours, Commander. This sector is empty. No ships, no stations, nothing." Sat down in her command chair and closed her eyes. She had served in the Terran Federation Navy for 15 years. She had fought pirates and explored unknown worlds. But this was different. This time, there was nothing she could do but wait to die. Meanwhile, 3 light towers away, captain of the science vessel Wind Through Stars heard the human distress call. There were a bird-like species with sharp eyes and feathers that changed color with their emotions. Right now, his feathers were dark blue with worry. His first officer, Ara, spoke in their musical language. "Captain, we should report this to the Conclave and continue our mission. The humans are not our responsibility." Studied the message on his screen. The human ship was dying. 12 souls would be lost if no one helped them. His feathers shifted to pale yellow as he thought carefully. They had strict rules about contact with other species. They believed in staying separate, watching but not interfering. The Conclave had made it clear that helping humans was forbidden. Humans were expanding too fast, taking too much space. They were dangerous. But remembered the old stories his grandmother had told him as a chick. She spoke of the ancient belief that all life was connected like branches on a great tree. To let innocents die when you could save them was to cut those branches forever. "Set course for the human ship," he ordered. Ara's feathers turned bright red with shock. "Captain, the Conclave has forbidden." "I know what they have forbidden," interrupted. "But I also know what is right. We cannot let them die when we can save them." The Wind Through Stars changed course and jumped to hyperspace. Within 2 hours, they arrived at the location of the human ship. The UES Horizon hung motionless in space, its hull dark except for a few emergency lights. On the human ship, the communications officer suddenly sat up straight. "Commander, I'm getting a signal, someone's here." Rushed to the communications station. On the screen appeared a face unlike anything she had ever seen. It was covered in silver and blue feathers, with large golden eyes and a sharp beak. But the expression in those eyes was kind. "Human vessel, this is captain of the ship Wind Through Stars," the alien said in careful but clear human language. "We have received your distress call. Do you require assistance?" Felt tears in her eyes. "Yes, Captain, our engines are dead and life support is failing. We have 12 crew members." "We will help you," replied simply. "Prepare your people for transport to our ship." The rescue took 4 hours. The ship was larger than it appeared, with strange curved corridors that seemed to flow like water. The air smelled like flowers and rain. His crew was amazed by everything they saw. Met them personally as they came aboard. He was tall and graceful, moving with the smooth motions of a bird in flight. His feathers were now golden with what somehow knew was happiness. "Welcome aboard the Wind Through Stars," he said. "You are safe now." "Why?" asked. "Your people don't help outsiders. I've read the reports. The stay away from other species." His feathers darkened slightly. "That is true, and I will face punishment for this choice. But some things are more important than rules. Life is precious, no matter what form it takes. Studied his face carefully. She realized that this alien had just risked everything to save her and her crew. What will happen to you? I do not know, admitted. Perhaps exile, perhaps worse, but your people will live, that is what matters. For the next 3 days, while the ship traveled to a human outpost, spent hours talking with. She learned about his people's history, their art, their beliefs. In return, she told him about human culture, about Earth, about the dreams that drove humans to explore the stars. On their last day together, made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She took off her personal navigation beacon, a small device that could transmit across vast distances. Every human commander carried one. "Captain," she said, pressing the beacon into his feathered hand, "this is my personal beacon. If you ever need help, if you're ever in danger, activate this device. I promise you that humans will come. We don't forget our friends." Looked at the small device with wonder. "I cannot accept this. I only did what was right." "That's exactly why you should have it," replied firmly. "Good beings are rare in this galaxy. When we find them, we protect them." As the wind through stars docked with the human outpost, carefully placed the beacon in a secure pouch. He did not know that this small act would one day save his entire species. When and her crew transferred to the human station, she turned back one last time. "Thank you. I will never forget what you did for us." His feathers glowed with soft gold light. "And I will never forget the honor of knowing humans like you." As the wind through stars departed for space, watched until it disappeared into hyperspace. She had no idea that she had just planted the seeds of the greatest alliance in galactic history. 5 years had passed since the rescue, and now wore the gold stars of a rear admiral on her uniform. She stood before 300 young officers at the Terran Naval Academy on Mars, their eager faces looking up at her from the lecture hall. "Today I want to tell you about honor," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Not human honor, but the honor of someone who had every reason to let us die and chose to save us instead." The cadets leaned forward as told the story of Captain. She spoke of his sacrifice, his exile, and the beacon he still carried somewhere in the distant reaches of space. When she finished, the hall was completely silent. A young cadet raised her hand. "Admiral, what happened to him? Do we know if he's safe?" His expression grew sad. "We don't know. They don't communicate with outsiders, but I hope that somehow he knows we haven't forgotten him." This was the 15th time had told story at a graduation ceremony. She had made it part of her personal mission to ensure that every human officer knew about the alien who chose compassion over orders. The story spread beyond the academy too. Veterans shared it in space bars. Commanders told it to their crews during long voyages. Soon became a legend in human space. His name was spoken with the same respect as the greatest human heroes. Children learned about the kind bird captain who saved the lost humans. Artists created paintings of the golden-eyed alien extending his hand to drowning sailors in the sea of stars. But didn't stop at just telling stories. She worked with the Federation Council to create something new, the Protocol. Any being who rendered aid to humans in distress would be granted permanent protected status. There would be marked as a Federation ally. If they ever needed help, humanity would respond with the full force of its military. "Some beings are worth more than entire fleets," explained to the skeptical politicians. Proved that individual courage can change everything. We need to honor that, and we need to make sure others know we will honor it. The protocol was approved by a wide margin. Personally oversaw the creation of a special monitoring network. Deep space sensors were programmed to detect one specific frequency, the beacon she had given to years ago. While built memorials to kindness, humanity itself was growing stronger. What had started as a few colony ships had become a mighty civilization spanning 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. New worlds joined the Terran Federation every year. Some came seeking protection from pirates or hostile neighbors. Others wanted access to human technology and trade routes. Admiral Wei, now commander of the 3rd Heavy Assault Fleet, often joked that humans were like a virus spreading across the galaxy. But it was a good kind of virus, he said. Wherever humans went, they brought medicine, technology, and protection for those who needed it. The human military had grown alongside the civilian population. The Federation Navy now boasted over 800 ships, from small patrol vessels to massive dreadnoughts that could level entire moons. Human marines were feared by pirates and slavers across the known galaxy. Human engineers built stations and shipyards that became hubs of commerce and culture. But with power came responsibility. Other species began to watch humanity with concern. The Star Empire complained that human expansion was threatening their trade routes. The corporate syndicate worried that human ideas about freedom were spreading to their worker populations. Some aliens spoke quietly of the human problem. They remembered other species that had grown too fast and too strong. History was full of empires that had consumed everything in their path before burning out or being stopped by force. Now a full admiral in charge of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet was aware of these concerns. She tried to address them through diplomacy and careful expansion policies. But she also knew that humanity would not be stopped by threats or fear. "We're not conquerors," she told a gathering of alien ambassadors. "We're explorers. We go to the stars not to take but to discover, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The ambassador from the hegemony of a reptilian empire known for its aggressive expansion laughed coldly. "Pretty words, Admiral, but words change nothing. The strong take what they want and the weak submit or die. This is the way of the galaxy." Looked the reptilian ambassador directly in his yellow eyes. "No, Excellence, that is your way. Humans have learned a different path. We have learned that protecting the innocent makes us stronger than crushing them ever could." The hegemony representative dismissed her words with a wave of his clawed hand, but noticed that he was taking careful notes about human fleet movements and military capabilities. She made a mental note to increase security patrols near hegemony space. As the years passed, story of continued to spread. It became more than just a tale told in academies. It became part of human culture itself. When merchant captains helped stranded travelers, they invoked example. When colony ships risked dangerous routes to deliver medical supplies to plague-stricken worlds, they carried his name on their hulls. The story had even reached the outer colonies, where settlers faced constant dangers from alien predators, equipment failures, and cosmic storms. A popular song in the frontier bars told of the Golden Captain, who would come from the stars to save the lost and forgotten. Sometimes wondered if the real was anything like the legend he had become. She imagined him on some distant world, perhaps working at a lonely monitoring station, unaware that his name was spoken with reverence by billions of humans across the galaxy. She kept the monitoring system active, checking it personally every week. The beacon's signal had never come. Part of her hoped it never would because that would mean was safe. But part of her hoped it would because she wanted the chance to repay the debt humanity owed him. On quiet nights aboard her flagship, would look out at the stars and think about the alien who had changed her life. She wondered if he knew what he had started. One act of kindness had inspired a protocol that protected dozens of species. One alien's courage had become a story that shaped human culture across hundreds of worlds. The Federation was stronger now than it had ever been. Human ships patrolled vast sectors of space, keeping trade routes safe and protecting the innocent. Human colonies thrived on worlds that had been empty wasteland just decades before. Human ideals of justice and freedom spread to species that had never known such concepts. But never forgot that it all started with one feathered hand, reaching out to save drowning strangers in the cosmic dark. Captain stood at the observation window of monitoring Station 7, watching the stars as he had done every day for 33 years. His feathers were now silver with age, and his once bright golden eyes had dimmed. The isolation had been hard, but he had found peace in the quiet work of watching the deep space sensors. The station was small and simple, just enough room for one person, and the equipment needed to monitor this empty sector of space had grown used to the silence. He read ancient poetry, tended a small garden of earth flowers that had given him seeds for, and maintained the instruments that watched for threats to space. Today felt different, though. The emergency communication array had been active for hours, sending signals toward but had been cut off from normal channels since his exile. He was not supposed to receive official transmissions. Then the emergency override activated. A face appeared on his screen that he had not seen in decades. High Keeper Ara, the leader of the conclave. She looked old and frightened. She said, her voice shaking, "I know you have no reason to help us. I know we cast you out for saving those humans, but our people are about to die and you are our only hope." His feathers turned pale blue with shock. "High Keeper, what has happened?" "The hegemony has invaded our space. Their fleet appeared without warning 3 days ago. They destroyed our outer defense stations and are now advancing on Their leader, War Master Al, demands our complete surrender." The image changed to show the space around Prime. Hundreds of dark reptilian ships surrounded the beautiful blue-green world where had been born. Their weapons were charging, preparing to bombard the surface if the conclave did not surrender. "We have 18 hours, Ara continued. "Al says he will turn our world into glass if we do not submit to become slaves of the hegemony. Our defense fleet is destroyed. We have no allies. No one in the galaxy cares if they live or die." Felt his heart breaking. His people, for all their faults, did not deserve this. They were scholars and artists, scientists and philosophers. They had never harmed anyone. Their only crime was wanting to remain isolated from the violent galaxy around them. "High Keeper, why are you telling me this? I am in exile. I have no ships, no weapons, nothing." Ara's image flickered with static. The hegemony was already jamming communications. "Because 33 years ago, you made a choice that the conclave called foolish. You saved aliens when you should have followed orders. But perhaps that choice has given us one last hope." Understood. His eyes went to a small storage container on his desk, where he had kept his beacon all these years. Sometimes he had taken it out and looked at it, remembering the kind human who had promised that her people never forgot their friends. "The humans," he whispered. "Yes, you know them better than any alive. Do you think, could they help us?" Thought of and her promise. But that was decades ago. She might be dead. Even if she lived, would humans really risk their ships and lives for a species they barely knew? The hegemony fleet was massive and powerful. It would take a huge force to defeat them. "I don't know," he admitted, but gave me her word. She said humans don't forget. The transmission was breaking up as hegemony jammers grew stronger. "The decision is yours, old friend. If there is any chance, any hope at all, please try. Our children are on that world, all our future generations." The screen went dark, was alone again with the stars and the weight of an impossible choice. He walked slowly to his desk and opened the storage container. The human beacon looked exactly as it had 33 years ago, small and silver with a single red button. Had shown him how to activate it before they parted. "Just press this," she had said. "The signal will reach every human ship in this sector of the galaxy, but only use it if you truly need help. This is not a toy." Held the device in his feathered hands and thought about everything that had led to this moment. His choice to save the humans had cost him his career, his home, his place in society. The conclave had called him a fool and a traitor. They had sent him to this lonely station to be forgotten. But now, those same leaders were begging for his help. They wanted him to call upon the aliens they had forbidden him to save. He thought about the hegemony ships surrounding his. War Master Al was known throughout the galaxy for his cruelty. If they surrendered, they would become slaves. Their children would be taken to work in hegemony mines. Their art and culture would be destroyed. Their beautiful cities would be torn down to make room for hegemony military bases. If they refused to surrender, Al would bombard the planet from orbit. Billions of innocent would die in minutes. Either way, his people faced destruction. Looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the trade routes. Human families lived on colonies his people had never even heard of. The humans had built an empire while they hid in their isolation. But had been different. She had seen him not as an alien but as a friend. She had trusted him with her beacon and her promise. She had said that good beings were rare and should be protected. Maybe it was time to find out if she had meant it. Press the red button. The beacon activated with a soft chime. A pulse of energy shot out into space, carrying a unique signal on frequencies that only human ships monitored. The pulse would travel faster than light, racing across the galaxy to every human fleet, every command post, every ship that carried the proper receivers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then station sensors detected something impossible. Deep in human space, hundreds of light years away, ships were changing course. The massive human fleet signatures were turning away from their patrol routes and heading in his direction. Sat down heavily in his chair, his feathers shifting through colors of hope and fear. He had just gambled the fate of his entire species on the word of a human woman he had known for 3 days, 33 years ago. Now he could only wait and see if humans really kept their promises. In his heart, he began to believe they might. After all, they had made a legend out of one old who had simply chosen to do the right thing. Perhaps that meant they understood what it meant to honor a debt. The beacon continued to pulse, sending its message into the void. "This is, I need help, please come." Across human space, on hundreds of ships, alarms began to sound as commanders received a signal they had hoped never to hear, but had always been ready to answer. Admiral was reviewing supply reports in her cabin aboard the flagship UES Defiant when every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. She dropped her tablet and rushed to the bridge, where her staff was frantically checking their instruments. "Report," she called out as she entered the command center. Commander Park, her tactical officer, looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, we're receiving a Priority 1 beacon signal. It's the frequency you programmed into our systems 30 years ago." Felt her heart stop. She had always known this moment might come, but she had begun to think it never would. "Confirm the signal source." "Confirmed, Admiral. It's coming from deep space near the border. The beacon identification matches the one given to Captain." Closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with new determination. "Sound General Quarters. Send a message to all fleet commanders on emergency channels. Tell them the protocol is now active." Within minutes, her message was racing across the galaxy to every human ship. The words were simple but carried immense weight. "The beacon has been activated. Needs our help. All available ships are to proceed immediately to coordinates that follow. This is not a drill." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Captain was leading his battle group in pursuit of pirates near the outer rim when the message reached him. He had been a cadet when Admiral first told the story of at the Academy. The alien's tale of sacrifice had inspired him to join the fleet. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we have an emergency message from Admiral. The beacon has been activated." Didn't hesitate. "Signal the fleet. All ships form up for hyperspace jump. Leave a single frigate to continue the pirate hunt. Everyone else comes with us." "But sir," his first officer protested, "our orders are to clear this sector of pirates. If we leave now." Our orders were written by people who never met the alien who saved Admiral, replied firmly. But I know that story by heart. We're going to help him. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of human ships. Admiral Sarah Henderson commanded the 7th Exploration Fleet in the far reaches of unknown space. Her ships were mapping new star systems when the beacon signal reached them. She immediately recalled all her scouts and destroyers. "Ma'am," her science officer asked, "shouldn't we contact Fleet Command for permission to abandon our mission?" "No time," Henderson replied as she watched her ships forming up for the jump. "Waited 33 years to call for help. If he's finally asking, it means he's out of options." The 3rd Heavy Assault Fleet was defending the border when Admiral Way received the signal. His massive dreadnoughts were the backbone of human military power, designed to fight entire enemy fleets. Leaving the border undefended was a serious risk. But Way remembered sitting in the academy classroom as a young cadet, listening to tell the story of the alien who chose conscience over orders. He had built his entire career on the principle that honor mattered more than regulations. "Signal all ships," he commanded. "We're going to repay a very old debt." As word spread through human space, something unprecedented began to happen. Ships that had never worked together started coordinating their movements. Fleet admirals who normally competed for resources and recognition found themselves united by a common purpose. The 2nd Strike Fleet abandoned their anti-piracy patrol and jumped toward space. The 9th Colonial Defense Force left minimal guards on the frontier worlds and sent everything else. Even the 12th Reserve Squadron, made up of older ships and veteran crews who were supposed to be in non-combat roles, activated for emergency deployment. Watched the reports coming in with amazement. Every major fleet command was responding. Ships were coming from sectors she hadn't even sent messages to, as word spread through the tight-knit community of human naval officers. "Admiral," her communications chief reported, "I'm tracking 847 ships en route to the beacon coordinates. More are launching every hour." Had expected perhaps 50 ships to respond. She had hoped for 100. 800 was beyond her wildest dreams. "Ma'am," Commander Park said quietly, "this is going to be the largest human fleet ever assembled, larger than the force that fought the Battle of Rigel, larger than the armada that broke the Syndicate blockade. What if this is just a test? What if isn't really in danger?" Looked at the tactical display showing the converging human fleets. It represented decades of military buildup, hundreds of billions of credits in ships and equipment, and the lives of over 200,000 sailors and Marines. "Then we'll have shown the galaxy what human friendship means," she said simply. "But something tells me this is real. Wouldn't activate that beacon unless his people were facing extinction." As if to confirm her words, a new message arrived through diplomatic channels. It came from the Galactic Trade Council, which monitored major military movements throughout known space. "Admiral," the message read, "we are detecting massive fleet movements in human space. All major commands appear to be converging on the system. At the same time, our sources report that the hegemony has invaded space with a force of 300 ships. War Master Al has demanded the complete surrender of the. Please advise your intentions." Smiled grimly as she composed her reply. "The Terran Federation is responding to a request for assistance from an old friend. We will ensure that the people are protected from any threat to their existence." The Trade Council's response came back within hours. "Admiral, the Hegemony fleet is one of the most powerful in this sector. Are you certain you want to provoke a war over an isolated species that has no strategic value?" His reply was shorter. "The value of the cannot be measured in trade routes or resources. Some things matter more than strategy." As human ships continued to pour into the staging area, received a private message that made her smile. It came from Captain Maria Santos, commander of the heavy cruiser UES Honor. remembered Maria as the young cadet who had asked about fate during that graduation ceremony 5 years ago. "Admiral," the message read, "I wanted to thank you for telling us that story so many years ago. My entire crew volunteered for this mission. We know we might not come back, but we also know that some debts have to be paid regardless of the cost. See you at space." Realized that what she was watching wasn't just a military response. It was something deeper and more powerful. The story of had become part of human culture, part of what it meant to be human. Every officer who had answered the call had grown up hearing that tale of alien courage and sacrifice. They weren't coming just because had ordered it. They were coming because a gentle alien with golden eyes had once chosen to save strangers, and humans had decided that such kindness could never be forgotten. As the last ships reported ready for the final jump to space, stood on her bridge and looked out at the largest armada humanity had ever assembled. 861 ships from every corner of human space, all united by a promise made to a lonely exile 33 years ago. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet channel, "this is Admiral. We go now to honor a debt that can never truly be repaid. Captain saved 12 humans once when he had every reason to let us die. Today, we show him that humans keep their promises." She paused, thinking of the old alien waiting alone at his monitoring station, probably wondering if his desperate signal had been heard. "All ships jump to hyperspace. We're going to bring home." War Master Al stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Venom of, watching the countdown timer that marked the final hour before his bombardment of the would begin. The bird-like aliens had refused his generous offer of slavery, choosing death instead. Their foolishness would serve as a lesson to other weak species. "War Master," his sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system. Something large is coming through." Al's yellow eyes narrowed. They have no allies. Their isolation has seen to that. It's probably a merchant ship fleeing the system. Then space exploded with light. 861 human warships materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation. Massive dreadnoughts flanked by sleek destroyers, carriers disgorging clouds of fighters, heavy cruisers with their weapons already charging. The largest armada anyone in this sector had ever seen. "War Master," the sensor operator's voice cracked with fear, "I count over 800 ships. It's the entire human fleet." Al felt a chill run through his scaled body. He had studied human military capabilities, but this exceeded every estimate. How is this possible? Why would humans travel hundreds of light years to protect a species they barely know? His communication officer looked up from his console. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human ship." "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was human, female, with gray hair and eyes that held no mercy. Admiral looked directly at Al as if she could see into his soul. "War Master Al," she said calmly, "I am Admiral of the Terran Federation Navy. You are in violation of the protocol. Withdraw your forces from space immediately." Al laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Admiral, you are outnumbered 3-1. I have 300 ships against you. How many did you bring?" 861, replied without emotion. "And every single one is here because a named once chose to save lives instead of following orders. You have 10 minutes to withdraw." "Impossible," Al snarled. "No species risks their entire fleet for strangers. What do you gain from this?" His expression softened slightly. "We gain the knowledge that honor still exists in this galaxy, War Master, something you wouldn't understand." The transmission ended. Al stared at the tactical display showing the human fleet taking attack positions. He had built his career on the principle that might made right, that the strong naturally dominated the weak. But here was a force stronger than his own, risking everything to protect aliens they had no reason to care about. "War Master," his tactical officer reported, The humans are launching fighters. Their capital ships are targeting our command vessels. Al made his decision. All ships, attack formation. We'll show these humans what real warriors can do. The battle that followed was swift and brutal. The hegemony fleet fought with the desperation of cornered predators, but they were facing something they had never encountered before, an enemy motivated by something stronger than fear or greed. Captain led the first wave of attack ships, diving through the hegemony formation like sharks through a school of fish. His pilots flew with precision and courage, each one knowing they were fighting for something bigger than military strategy. Admiral Sarah Henderson's exploration ships, normally used for peaceful survey missions, proved surprisingly effective in combat when their crews fought with the fury of those defending family. Her science officers used their deep space sensors to guide missile strikes with deadly accuracy. But it was Admiral Way's heavy assault fleet that broke the hegemony resistance. His massive dreadnoughts, designed to fight multiple enemies simultaneously, carved through the reptilian formation like hot knives through ice. When the flagship Venom exploded under concentrated fire from 3 human capital ships, the remaining hegemony vessels began to surrender. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the hegemony fleet was either destroyed or retreating toward their home space. The was safe. Immediately dispatched ships to locate's monitoring station. When they found it, she insisted on personally leading the shuttle that brought him aboard her flagship. The reunion took place in his private cabin, away from the crews and cameras. Stood before her, his feathers now silver with age, his golden eyes dimmed but still kind. Was older too, her hair gray and her face lined with decades of command responsibility. "You came," said simply. "I gave you my word," replied, "and humans keep their promises." Looked out the viewport at the massive human fleet surrounding his peoples. "I never imagined. When you gave me that beacon, I thought perhaps a few ships might come. But this is what happens when one act of kindness inspires an entire civilization," explained. "Your story has been told in every human school and military academy for 30 years. You've become part of who we are as a people." Tears formed in his large eyes. "My people exiled me for saving you. They said I was a fool who put strangers before duty." Smiled. "And now those same people are alive because that fool called for help. Sometimes the greatest wisdom looks like foolishness to those who lack vision." The aftermath of the battle changed the political landscape of the galaxy. The grateful beyond measure formally joined the Terran Federation as founding members of a new organization, the Galactic Alliance. It would be built on principles of mutual aid and protection, with the Protocol as its founding document. Other species, seeing how humans had risked everything to protect allies, began to reconsider their relationships with the growing human empire. The Star Empire, previously hostile, opened negotiations for a defense treaty. Dozens of smaller civilizations requested Federation protection from piracy and aggression. Even more importantly, the story of the human response spread throughout the galaxy. Poets wrote songs about the armada that came to honor a debt. Historians studied it as an example of how cultural values could shape military action. Diplomats used it as proof that some species could be trusted to keep their word. War Master Al, captured during the battle, was brought before a Federation tribunal. When asked why he thought humans had responded so overwhelmingly to protect he gave an answer that surprised everyone. "Because they are not like us," he said quietly. "We see weakness as something to exploit. They see it as something to protect. We measure strength by what we can take. They measure it by what they can give. I spent my life believing that only force mattered, but they proved that kindness can be the strongest force of all." Was offered a position as the first ambassador to the Federation, but he declined. Instead, he chose to return to his monitoring station, which was upgraded into a symbol of peace and friendship between species. A small monument was built there, with words in both human and scripts. One act of kindness can echo across the stars. Visited him there regularly until the end of her career. They would sit together and watch the stars, two old friends who had learned that the galaxy was smaller than it seemed when good beings reached out to help each other. On her final visit before retirement, asked if he ever regretted the choice he had made all those years ago. The old looked out at the monument, where ships from a dozen species stopped to pay their respects to the alien who had started it all. His feathers glowed with soft golden light, the same color they had been when he first decided to save a shipload of dying humans. "No," he said peacefully. "I have learned that some choices echo across time and space in ways we can never imagine. When I saved your ship, I thought I was simply preserving 12 lives. Instead, I helped create a future where kindness is seen as strength, where different species can work together, and where no one has to die alone in the dark between the stars." Nodded, understanding at last why humans had built an empire not through conquest, but through the simple act of keeping promises made to friends. The galaxy was indeed smaller when measured by kindness rather than distance, and it was brighter when illuminated by the light of beings willing to risk everything for the sake of doing what was right.